Yongsan Station area's early morning market. 75-year-old Hannah Lee, like any other day, was meticulously washing cabbages and cleaning her cart's wheels. She had prepared the vegetables before dawn, but by mid-morning not a single bundle had sold. Clouds gathered heavy overhead, and the pavement pulsed with the hurried footsteps of passers-by. She circled the narrow lanes of the market, yet her cart remained untouched. The thought of returning home empty-handed weighed heavily on her mind. Finally, she stopped at the alley's dead end and sighed. In her hand were only a few $1 bills and a single takeout lunch wrapped in plastic. At that moment, raindrops began to fall. As she reached to cover her cart, a wheel snagged on a pothole, scattering the vegetables onto the wet asphalt. Cabbage and radishes lay sprawled across the slick pavement, but no one halted. Strangers hurried by, their eyes fixed on smartphones, clutching umbrellas against the drizzle. Hannah glanced up at the indifferent crowd, then suddenly felt someone, or something, looking at her. Under a street lamp on the corner, a white dog, battered and thin, sat watching her intently. Its coat was tangled, its body scarred, eyes dulled. Mites clung to its fur, and a fresh scar marked one ear. The dog stared at her quietly. A single living soul unnoticed by the rest of the world. In Hannah's chest stirred an unfamiliar feeling. She sensed that if she walked away now, she'd never see this creature again. Saving this dog would mean she would go hungry today. Reality struck her mind, but she could not bring herself to leave. Setting aside her cart, she approached the dog. It wasn't pity that guided her steps. It was something deeper. She feared that abandoning it would break her. The small animal clinic near Seodaemun was far away, and the rain intensified, but Hannah pressed on. By the time they arrived, she was soaked through. Dr. Kim Reynolds examined the dog and spoke gravely. Its heart is weak, it's physically exhausted, traumatized, it's critical. Treatment was possible but expensive. Hannah quietly opened her wallet, the change she'd saved for the day's business and some of her meager savings. With head bowed, she said, "This is all I have. I'll pay back the rest with tomorrow's earnings." After a pause, Dr. Reynolds switched off the card terminal and took the dog into the treatment room. "Does it have a name?" he asked. Hannah looked at the dog. Its body was injured, but its eyes held a strange, hopeful light. After a long moment, she answered softly, "Stella." It felt like a first flicker of warmth in her life. And so, Stella would live. That night, Hannah sat quietly in the clinic's waiting room. The rain outside didn't let up, but her heart slowly found a calm it hadn't known in years. The next morning, she returned to the clinic as soon as it opened. She hadn't slept a wink. A nurse gently led her to the exam room. Dr. Reynolds looked tired, but his face carried a trace of relief. Stella was still alive. Her body remained still and her condition fragile, but she had made it through the night. Without saying a word, Hannah sat beside the vet and watched over the dog. Stella's fur was slightly drier, and her breathing seemed a bit steadier. Dr. Reynolds explained that more treatment would be needed. Daily injections, fluids, and medications for several days. Hannah nodded. She hadn't sold a single vegetable, but as soon as she left the clinic, she planned to haul her cart out again. A few hours later, she returned to the market. She set up her cart near a second-hand grocery store, laying out her cabbages, but the vegetables, soaked from the day before, no longer looked fresh. Passers-by glanced and turned away. That day, she earned less than half of what the vet bills required. Still, she went back to the clinic and handed over what she had. "This is all for today," she said. "I'll bring more tomorrow." From that day on, Hannah's daily rhythm was set. Mornings at the market, afternoons at the clinic, nights sleeping on a blanket on the clinic floor. No matter the rain or wind, She prepared vegetables before sunrise and pushed her cart through the streets. Her body ached under the strain, but she never once stopped. A week passed. Dr. Reynolds said Stella was stabilizing. Her breathing was regular, her temperature normal, and she had started eating small amounts. Hannah broke into a quiet smile. That day, as she left the clinic, she scooped some kibble into a small dish and placed it before Stella. The dog slowly lifted her head and turned toward Hannah before taking a bite. That night, in the hallway of the clinic, Dr. Reynolds sat beside her with 2 cups of coffee. "Don't worry too much about the bills," he said. "Just pay what you can." Hannah tried to thank him, but her words stuck in her throat. She simply bowed her head. Days later, Stella began to practice standing. Her legs were still weak, but she moved them gradually. The nurses cheered her on daily. Hannah continued her pattern, selling vegetables by day, returning to the clinic by night. A small donation box marked "For Stella's Care" was placed by her cart. Some customers dropped in $1 or $2. Hannah lived each day with gratitude. Stella's white fur regained its shine, her eyes sparkled again. From a distance, she was unrecognizable from the mangled dog once crouched under a lamppost. One morning, when Hannah arrived at the clinic, Stella wagged her tail gently in greeting. That simple gesture made her day. For the first time, Hannah felt her heart lighten. That evening, after closing her cart, she bought a couple of small custard cakes and brought them to the clinic. She handed the warm paper bag to Dr. Reynolds. Stella and Hannah's bond deepened day by day. Slowly, color seeped into what had once been a life full of only wait and silence. Weeks passed, and Stella became nearly unrecognizable from the dog she once was. She could walk on her own around the clinic and even responded when the nurses called her name. Hannah never missed a single visit. Slowly but surely, she paid down the clinic bills. Dr. Reynolds occasionally waived parts of the fees to ease the burden. The clinic staff now greeted Hannah warmly and treated Stella like family. Once Hannah was confident that Stella had recovered enough, she brought her back to the market. The cart was loaded with vegetables again, and now Stella walked proudly beside it. At first, some vendors were unhappy. One muttered that a dog would scare away customers. Another said it was unsanitary to keep a dog tied up near the cart. Hannah quietly bowed her head. Stella, calm and well-behaved, sat loyally beside the cart. In time, things began to change. Children stopped to look at Stella, drawn in by her white coat and gentle eyes. They took pictures with their phones. Adults began to ask questions. "Where did you find such a smart dog?" At first, Hannah was shy, but slowly she began chatting with them. Customers would smile at Stella, then buy vegetables. Gradually, sales increased. What once took all day to sell now cleared out by lunchtime. Some even came just to see Stella and left with a bag of vegetables. For the first time, Hannah experienced the joy of returning home with an empty cart. That evening, she bought a small piece of meat from a local deli and offered it to Stella. The dog hesitated, unfamiliar with the taste, but then gently chewed it. Hannah watched, smiling. After a long time, warmth returned to her heart. Soon, more people in the market recognized Stella. Elderly customers would talk about their grandkids while petting her. Young couples brought their children to meet the famous dog. Many praised Stella's intelligence. Some brought treats specifically for her. Hannah found the attention both unfamiliar and deeply touching. One day, Stella even began responding to basic commands, sitting when told, lifting a paw. People stopped to admire her and left with full shopping bags. Hannah gained confidence. Her voice grew stronger when recommending vegetables. On good days, she paid more toward the clinic. With leftover earnings, she bought higher quality food for Stella. The dog became increasingly sociable. She didn't shy away from strangers and kept close to Hannah throughout the day. When they made their rounds through the market, Hannah often spoke to her. She couldn't remember the exact words, but it never felt like talking to herself anymore. Just having Stella there made everything less lonely. One rainy afternoon, the skies suddenly poured as Hannah approached the market entrance. While other vendors scrambled to pack up, she pushed her cart under a building's awning and covered it with plastic. Stella stayed close, sheltering beside her. The sight caught someone's attention, and a photo was posted on social media. Titled "The Rainy Day Cart Dog," the image quickly spread among local vendors. After that, people began lining up at Hannah's cart. Customers bought vegetables and greeted Stella like an old friend. Some days it felt like there were more kind voices than actual sales. But Hannah didn't mind. That warmth no longer felt unfamiliar. It had become her new normal. Life with Stella was something she had never expected, but now she couldn't imagine her days without it. One day, as usual, Hannah finished her sales and was on her way home, pushing the cart through the back alley of the market. She reached a crosswalk and waited. When the light turned green, she stepped forward, but suddenly slipped on the wet pavement. The cart tilted and the vegetables scattered across the asphalt. Hannah fell hard. From a distance, a motorcycle sped toward the intersection, ignoring the light, crossing the median. Hearing the roar of the engine, Hannah looked up. Her vision went white with panic. Bystanders gasped, frozen in place. Just then, Stella bolted forward from beside the cart. Her sharp bark rang out through the street. The motorcyclist slammed on the brakes. The tires skidded, stopping just a few feet in front of Hannah. Silence fell. The rider removed his helmet, dazed, looking around. Several people pulled out their phones. Some started recording, others called 911. Slowly, Hannah pushed herself up. Stella stood firmly in front of her. Then came murmurs from the crowd. "That dog saved her! Unbelievable! She really did!" Soon, paramedics and police arrived. No one was seriously injured. The bystander video began circulating online, and the story was quickly picked up under the headline, "Cart Dog of Yongsan Saves Elderly Woman." The next day, Hannah's cart drew an even bigger crowd. Some said, "I saw the video, so moving to see her in person." Others bought vegetables just to show support. Children lined up to take photos with Stella. A few reporters approached asking for interviews. Hannah, shy as ever, politely declined, but people's curiosity and warmth didn't fade. That evening, she finished work earlier than usual. Her bag was heavy with sales, but her heart felt strangely still. At home, under the warm lights, Stella lay by her side. Hannah turned to her, her lips mouthing silent thanks. That night, the video clip went viral, reaching the front page of several news sites and online communities. The headline read, "Stella's Miracle. Dog saves elderly woman at crosswalk." Thousands of comments poured in, tears streaming. Dogs have purer hearts than people. What a blessing it must be to call her family. The next morning, a line had already formed at the market gate before Hannah arrived. Not just for vegetables, people wanted to see Stella. As Hannah wheeled in her cart, Stella proudly walked beside her. People waved, kids took out their phones, some offered gifts, treats, dog food, even a brand new leash. The cart never had a quiet moment that day. Vegetables sold out quickly. For the first time, Hannah smiled widely at the market. On her way home, she stopped by a convenience store and bought a sweet potato just for Stella. It was a small celebration. Her face glowed with a light she hadn't known in years. For the first time, she understood how even a single kind word from a stranger could change the direction of someone's life. Turning on the radio while preparing dinner that night, she heard Stella's story briefly featured on a local station. In downtown DC, a dog named Stella saved a woman at a crosswalk. Her loyalty and courage inspired many. Just a short segment, but Hannah listened intently. Every word clung to her heart. That night, she said a small prayer, something she hadn't done in years. It felt unfamiliar to wish for something, but now she had someone worth wishing for. Stella breathed softly beside her, the room full of warmth and peace. After that night, Hannah's life began to change in small but meaningful ways. One afternoon, while she was setting up her cart near the neighborhood grocery store, a sleek silver luxury car pulled up, a rare sight in that part of town. A middle-aged woman stepped out, dressed in an elegant coat, pearl necklace glinting in the sun, holding a designer handbag. Her eyes locked onto Stella the moment she saw her. She approached slowly, staring carefully. Stella began to growl lowly, her body tense. The woman paused, but reached out, gently brushing aside fur near the dog's neck. A faint scar appeared. She quietly said, "This dog, she's ours. Her name is Luna. There's a microchip registered under our family." Hannah's face drained of color. She wanted not to believe it, but the photo the woman pulled from her phone showed a well-groomed white Jindo sitting in front of a high-end suburban home. Hannah stood frozen. The woman spoke again, her tone firm. "She ran off a month ago. Our whole family has been looking for her." Stella didn't move. Instead, she pressed even closer to Hannah's side. The woman took a breath, then bowed her head slightly. "Thank you for taking care of her, but she's our beloved pet." She walked to her car and returned with a leash. Slowly, she clipped it onto Stella's collar. Stella resisted slightly, eyes fixed on Hannah, but began following the woman as she walked away. Hannah stood motionless. She didn't even reach out to accept the envelope the woman offered as a thank you. The car drove off, Stella's eyes never leaving the figure growing smaller in the rearview mirror. Something inside Hannah cracked. Her hands remained gripping the cart's handle long after the street had emptied. The market quieted after that. The children who used to ask for Stella were gone. Customers rarely smiled or chatted. Hannah was alone again. The vegetables sold slower than before. Some kids would still ask, "Mom, where's the dog?" She would force a smile and say she went back to her family. But inside, a hollow space spread through her chest. Stella had been a miracle that briefly lit up her life. Now that miracle existed only in memory. Every day, Hannah glanced at the spot where Stella used to sit. It was always empty. She stopped visiting Dr. Reynolds' clinic. Without Stella, there seemed no reason to go. The quiet returned, louder than ever. One day, however, she returned to the clinic. Dr. Reynolds greeted her warmly. It had been a while. Sitting down, Hannah recounted everything quietly. The vet listened intently, nodding without interrupting. "If the original owner shows up, there's not much we can do," he said. "But that dog, she's the one who brought people in, not the vegetables. Her presence pulled hearts toward you." Hannah nodded. It was true. People came for Stella, not her. She was just the old lady with the cart. "I was alone," she said softly. "But for a while, it felt like I had a family." Dr. Reynolds offered her a warm cup of tea. When Hannah left, she looked up at the sky. It was overcast, but the breeze was gentle. She didn't know exactly what had changed, but something within her still felt empty, and she accepted that it might never fully go away. A few mornings later, during a cold, rainy dawn, Hannah stepped out to take the trash to the curb. In the dim alleyway beside her building, something caught her eye. A thin, soaked white dog was trembling at the edge of the wall. Hannah's heart stopped. It was Stella. Her body was thinner, ribs visible beneath the matted fur, and she was limping on her back leg. But her tail swayed gently, and her eyes locked onto Hannah's with a flicker of recognition. Without a second thought, Hannah rushed to her, gently wrapping her in her arms. Stella leaned into her chest with a faint, pitiful sound. Hannah said nothing. She brought her inside, dried her off with towels, and laid out a thick blanket on the warm floor. She turned on the light and placed some food nearby, but Stella could only eat a few bites before falling into a deep sleep. Hannah sat beside her through the night, listening to her soft breathing. The next morning, she took Stella straight to the clinic. Dr. Reynolds was stunned. He examined Stella carefully, then quietly shook his head. She hasn't eaten properly for days, and these new injuries. His voice trailed off. There were fresh scars on her sides and legs, signs of abuse. After the examination, he turned to Hannah and said softly, "Animals remember. They have a survival instinct. She came back because she remembered you, because she was in pain and knew where safety was." Hannah lowered her gaze, her throat tight with emotion. The thought of what Stella had endured while away was unbearable. Quietly, she asked, "What if that woman comes again? What if she tries to take her back?" Dr. Reynolds paused, then opened a drawer and pulled out a file. "I looked into the registration out of curiosity," he said. "Her chip was listed to an address in suburban Virginia. The name matched the woman who took her." Hannah's face darkened. "So she really was their dog?" Dr. Reynolds nodded. "Yes, but the moment they abandoned their responsibility and caused her harm, she ceased being their pet. Animal abuse is a legal issue, and these wounds are evidence. I've already photographed everything. If necessary, we can pursue protection under the Animal Welfare Act." Hearing that, Hannah exhaled slowly, relief washing over her. For the first time, she felt she could protect Stella. "She can stay with you," Dr. Reynolds said. "She's better off here with someone who truly cares." That day, Hannah stayed and helped with Stella's care. She learned how to apply ointment, give medicine, and dress wounds. She fumbled at first, but Stella lay still, trusting every touch. They soon became a familiar pair at the clinic. A few days later, Hannah visited the hardware store near the market. She bought plywood, nails, and a hammer. Back home, she worked late into the night, building a small doghouse. Her wrists ached, and the hammer missed its mark more than once, but she kept going. All that mattered was giving Stella a proper home. When the doghouse was finally done, it was already close to dawn. Stella came over quietly and curled up beside Hannah. The old woman gently stroked her fur and whispered, "From now on, let's live together. As long as you're with me, I won't feel alone." Stella didn't reply, but Hannah knew she understood. That night, their tiny apartment wasn't silent anymore. It was filled with warmth, breathing, and the beginning of a family. A few days later, while Hannah was selling vegetables in front of the neighborhood market, a young journalist approached her. He said he had heard about Stella's story from another vendor and wanted to feature them in an article. Hannah initially shook her head. She'd never stood in front of a camera, and attention made her uneasy, but the journalist spoke with a calm sincerity, and she hesitated. If Stella's story could give someone else hope, maybe it was worth sharing. A few days later, their story aired on the local news channel under the title, "A Miracle at Union Station, the Dog Who Chose Her Family." The footage showed Stella resting by the vegetable cart, smiling customers selecting produce, and Hannah's quiet but kind face. It also included a clip of the moment Stella saved her from the oncoming motorcycle. The day after the broadcast, strangers began showing up at the market. Some had seen the segment and wanted to support her by buying vegetables. Others came from neighboring cities just to meet Stella. Hannah was overwhelmed at first, but as she listened to their kind words and shared laughter, her heart slowly opened. One customer said, "I'll take everything you've got, and give Stella a treat too, please." From that day on, her cart was always surrounded. Office workers, seniors, parents with children, All came to see the famous dog. "Is this the Stella from the news?" I cried watching the story. "She's even more beautiful in person." Hannah bowed her head shyly, but inside she felt deeply moved. At the end of each day, her cart was empty, her wallet heavier than it had been in years. With her new earnings, she first paid off her overdue rent. Then she bought premium dog food at the pet store and picked out a small toy. Stella, now stronger and more energetic, sometimes carried vegetable baskets in her mouth and delivered them to customers. People cheered and took photos. One afternoon, Hannah noticed a small handmade scarf at a vendor's stall. It was a soft, golden tan yarn, warm and neatly knit. She immediately thought of Stella and bought it without hesitation. When she wrapped it gently around Stella's neck, the dog wagged her tail proudly, as if she understood. From then on, Stella became an even more beloved figure, and visitors came just to take pictures with her. Hannah's life was no longer lonely. Whether she was organizing vegetables at dawn or heading home in the evening, Stella was always by her side. Every night, as she petted Stella's head, she would whisper, "Thanks to you, I made it through another day." That simple sentence became her daily ritual, like a prayer of gratitude, a quiet closing to each day. One day, while Hannah was pushing her cart through a quiet alley behind the market, she spotted a familiar silver luxury car parked nearby. Her steps slowed. The woman from before stepped out, this time in a modest outfit, no jewelry, no designer handbag. She walked up slowly and offered a soft greeting. "Ma'am, I saw the news broadcast," she said. "We made a terrible mistake." Her voice was low, and her eyes showed a sincerity they hadn't before. She looked at Stella, no longer approaching with entitlement, but instead with respect. "Luna, no, Stella, she seems much happier here. We didn't take care of her the way we should have. We don't deserve her." Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope. Inside was Stella's official registration papers and a signed ownership transfer form. "Please, take care of her," she said. Hannah looked down at the papers, hands trembling slightly. She didn't say anything but slowly bowed her head. That alone said enough. Stella walked up to her and stood close. There was no fear, no hesitation, just certainty. She was exactly where she belonged. Hannah gently wrapped her arms around Stella's neck. Now, she truly was family. That evening, Hannah and Stella sat on a bench under an old railway bridge, side by side. In the distance, the sound of a train echoed softly. A winter breeze brushed past them, but the moment felt quiet and whole. Hannah whispered, "It's okay now, we're together." Stella responded with a slow, steady breath. As winter approached, grey clouds lingered over the DC skies. People bundled up in thick coats, and Hannah pulled out her old down jacket. She added a warm vest over Stella's handmade scarf. Even on freezing mornings, the two of them still showed up for work. Stella always took her spot on the right side of the cart. Hannah never let it go unattended. A regular customer, a suit-clad office worker, smiled as he passed by. "Out here again today?" Hannah nodded, smiling. "Of course. She's the biggest blessing in my life." More people gathered, warmed by the sight. They bought vegetables and greeted Stella as if visiting a dear friend. One day, a family visiting from out of town stopped and asked to take a photo with her. Their child reached out and Stella gently offered her paw. Hannah, watching, told them the full story, how they'd met under the bridge, the accident, and everything that followed. The parents listened, nodding, then bought all the vegetables in her cart without a word. That afternoon, Dr. Reynolds visited wearing a thick coat and holding a small package, an insulated waterproof dog jacket. A winter gift, he said with a smile. Hannah's eyes widened. She wrapped Stella in it right away. The size was perfect. Stella walked around the cart, tail wagging like she was showing off. Dr. Reynolds looked around the market thoughtfully. "Ma'am," he said, "we're organizing an adoption campaign at the clinic. We'd like to share Stella's story. Would you join us?" Hannah hesitated, but then she nodded. If her story gives even one animal a better chance, of course. From that day forward, Hannah and Stella became the faces of the animal shelter's adoption campaign. Hannah stood in front of a microphone and, in her quiet, steady voice, shared her story. She spoke of loss, loneliness, and the unexpected joy of finding someone to care for and to be cared for in return. Stella sat faithfully beside her, her presence alone powerful enough to move a crowd. Many who heard their story visited shelters, and slowly, more stray animals found new homes. On a morning when the season's first snow blanketed the city, Hannah returned to the bridge under which she had first met Stella. The world was still, wrapped in white. Hannah stood silently, her eyes on the footprints they left in the snow. She looked down at Stella. "If I hadn't found you, where would I be now?" Stella gently licked her hand. Even in the cold, her breath was warm. They looked at each other, no words needed. Then Hannah began pushing the cart once again, and Stella walked faithfully by her side. On the cart sat not just vegetables, but a story that had quietly moved so many hearts. Their steps didn't waver, even as the wind picked up. There are many miracles in this world, but Hannah had come to understand that sometimes one miracle is enough. The warmest moments in life are not found in grand gestures, but in becoming someone's reason to keep going. And that warmth, she realized, always begins in the human heart. To everyone who took the time to listen to our story today, thank you, truly. In the rush of everyday life, thank you for pausing with us to reflect on the small bond between a person and a life. It means more than you know. What we want to leave you with is simple. There are many kinds of miracles in the world, but the greatest one is becoming someone's miracle. A kind heart can save a life, and that life can in turn stir others to kindness. Their journey reminds us of the essence of life, that helping someone doesn't have to be grand. Sometimes it's simply seeing someone beside you. That's the heart of this story. We hope today's story touched something inside you. If it did, please consider clicking like below, leaving a comment to share your thoughts, or subscribing to our channel. We'll continue bringing you heartfelt, hopeful stories. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you.